Hi, I'm Rabbi Zac, the founder and CEO of Shefa, Jewish Psychedelic Support. And joining me today in conversation is our Rabbinic integration team, Beni Summers and Paige Lincenberg. I'm happy to introduce them as our Shefa Integration Circle facilitators and wanted to join with them and talk about what the experience of leading these circles has been like, how they came to this work, and to learn a little bit more about what Jewish psychedelic integration might hold for the rest of the Jewish world. So Paige, would love to start just to hear, who are you, where are you from, what are you learning, and where are you growing?
Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm Paige. I live in the Redwoods in Mendocino, California, though I grew up in Georgia, so have some deep Southern roots. And I am a fifth year rabbinical student at Aleph. Penny?
So, hi, I'm Beni, and I am in my second year in Shana Bet at Hebrew College Rabbinical School in the Boston area. I grew up in the Boston area, so I'm New England born and bred, and currently just learning a full slate of classes, working with this internship, another internship with a local community, serving as their rabbinic intern, and then also teaching weekly classes in a Hebrew school, and just like sort of staying connected at lots of different points along the Jewish communal professional space, as I've done for quite a while.
Thanks. And being a rabbinical student that is interested in talking publicly, speaking and teaching publicly about psychedelic experience or expanded states of consciousness is a unique position. So I'd love to learn, how did you come to this work? How did you come to this as something that you want to devote your time, resources, and passion toward?
Yeah, so I worked in the Jewish professional spaces for close to a decade after graduating from my undergrad program in upstate New York. And throughout all of my professional experiences, I came in touch with a growing trend amongst lots of different age groups within Jewish communities to connect back to primary contemplative and ecstatic experiences as mediated through multiple different modalities. And for me, that looked like investing more in the teachings and the writings of contemplative masters from other traditions and our own, developing a personal meditation practice, attending silent retreats, creating contemplative spaces in my home community and in the places that I was working full time. And during that time, I also came in contact with other ways of practicing meditation, one of which was in sensory deprivation tanks, or float tanks, as I prefer to call them, and was doing that quite intensively for a number of years. And in the midst of it really immersing myself, pun intended, in that practice, I came across the work of one of the inventors of this particular technique, this modality, Dr. John Lilly. And through learning about him, I started opening up to the broader field of the study of alternate states of consciousness. And that's really when I sort of started to dig down deeper and deeper into what Jewish sources and Jewish communal voices had to say about the relevance of these types of experiences in quotidian life and also in spiritual moments, and was finding a dearth of content, a dearth of people speaking up, a few voices from the first wave in Rabbi Art Green and Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shlomi, Zichrono Livracha, and realizing that there was a moment arriving that I could see coming for new generations of thinkers and practitioners and spiritual leaders to be seriously engaging with this work and with these practices in a way that could move the general population engaging with them towards a kind of wholeness and health that I was really anxious to see come to fruition as the general society started thawing from its prohibitionary freeze around a lot of these, especially in the psychedelic field. And so from there, it's time to learn. So then I started going to rabbinical school, and I haven't looked back, and it's been a lot of learning. It's been a lot of figuring out how much I don't know, but now I'm fully in it, and I couldn't be more humbled and grateful for the opportunities.
Beautiful, Beni. Thank you. I love that metaphor of thawing. I've had a similar but very different journey. First of all, I'm very passionate about culinary mushroom foraging. And so in the forest around here, I forage lots of golden chanterelles and black trumpets and hedgehogs and boletes. And so I've just for a long time felt deeply connected to that plant in general. And then, of course, deeply resonate with rituals, with ceremony. That, of course, being a primary part of the rabbinate, and through sitting on and also leading several silent Jewish meditation retreats, and also engaging in Native American inipis, the sweat lodges, and different sacred spaces like that, I was really drawn into really deepening the altered state that, that fasting can bring you into, or that heat can bring you into, and continuing to explore that, and what new state of prayer that can bring one into.
So I just appreciate both your unique journeys into this particular focus of contemplation, ecstatic states, what can be learned and gained from being in these states, both from indigenous culture, but also, deeply rooted in Jewish mystical traditions. And I'm interested then, that's about like achieving that new state of consciousness. You both were talking about the modality of which to achieve it. So I would love to hear from both of you also, what is your sense about integration? What is your idea of what integration could be, should be, both from just a general sense, but also what the Jewish tradition might offer in terms of psychedelic integration or integration of expanded states, regardless of how they're achieved?
I think our tradition models this for us beautifully with the Chagim, the high holidays, in that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, of course, bring in so much energy and powerful transformation and deep prayer. And then that leads us into Sukkot, where we're still, and we stay at home, and we stay on this one piece of land, and we even so much stay in that tiny square that you sleep there. And you're deeply integrating the power of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And to me, that's a huge, of course, in addition to praying for rain and the harvest, that's a huge component of Sukkot, is integrating Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And so I think if we can weave that model in our day to day, it's just as someone going on a big backpacking trip or going to a festival, or you have this profound, powerful experience, and then you try to return to one's daily life and you don't want to leave it behind. You're coming out of it changed and new, but you're returning your tshuva into something. And so it's so crucial to have a sacred, safe space to process and debrief and sit with how to integrate that into the day-to-day.
Beautiful. Yeah, Paige, I love that, focusing on the calendrical cycle as providing models for what Jewish integration could look like. I totally resonate with that. Also, I think within our own sort of historical broader narrative, there are moments, and within our own like stories and mythologies, there's so many moments to be learning from, also about what we're trying to stay away from in the integration process. I mean, I think very, very immediately about Sinai and Pardes Shel Akiva, right? Like that coming out of these profound peak experiences, there are so many things that can happen, and that in the stories of our people, some of those things have been building a golden calf, or, losing one's mind and connection to source and to community, and drifting away and no longer being a part of the collective project. And seeing that those voices are present in the tradition sort of gives me a lot of excitement about what we can be learning from our teachers and our ancestors and our sages about how to do this gracefully, how to come down from those moments gracefully and re-emerge somehow integrated back on those three levels that I often think about of Bein Adam L'Makom, Bein Adam L'Chavero, and Bein Adam L'Atzmo. So really thinking about that vertical plane, that horizontal plane, that inward plane, and trying to suffuse the significance of these peak moments into the relationships and into the interactions that occur on those different planes, and recognizing that as much as we have so much to gain from these wonderfully connective and expansive states, at the same time, we have to also recognize that there's a reason that these states are temporary, that they are moments and not the way that we live our lives. And because there is actually something wholly beautiful and dearly precious about how we live moment to moment every single day outside of those. And Judaism, I think, has just as much, if not more, to teach us about what that looks like or what that can look like for us, as much as what we can be doing in the midst of or leading up to an expanded state of awareness. So there's just so much to gain from deeply delving into the tradition as we've received it, and recognizing that there's so much to learn about that integration phase existing right underneath our fingers if we would just turn the pages and, and speak with each other about it.
Well, there's so much there that I think we could unpack and probably should unpack, both like Paige, what you mentioned about the calendar and how we feel about the ballast of time, and the order of things as being, in a way, a model for how we might think about psychedelic experience and its integration, expanded states of awareness, and how we take that peak experience, as you mentioned, Beni, and bringing it into our lives as they are lived in waking consciousness. That could be potentially a conversation that happens with many more Jewish people, or many more faith traditions, even, right? We're not just focusing on the use of psychedelics, what will happen in legal settings, what is already happening for people in other settings, and wanting to offer resources, but potentially for the larger Jewish world, thinking about our tradition as a path toward direct religious experience, but that not only being the end point, right? The end point is not the experience itself, but how we ground the learning, the encounter, the insight, the intuition into everything else that is happening much more often than that one moment at time. So thank you for bringing us there. Well, then I would be interested, now that you are facilitators of Jewish integration circles, right? These bi-monthly, Beni does one a month, Paige does one a month currently. You've been doing this, Beni, a little bit longer than Paige, but Paige, you've been doing this in other settings, not just with Shefa. I would be really happy to hear what you are learning as rabbinical students, as lifelong learners, as lovers of Jewish tradition and other traditions. What are you learning or struck by as facilitators of these unique Jewish spaces of integration?
Right away, when you ask me that question, I think about singing, and this idea of people love to sing their songs, and that up until now, up until the existence of something like Shefa being out in the world, many people that I've interacted with in these circles have told me stories about experiences that they've been having in different cultural contexts, in which they are thrust into expanded moments without the guardrails of a familiar and at-home situatedness. And that can have a profound impact on the experience itself, but also the relevance of the lessons that are derived from the experience afterwards, and the ability of the journeyer to integrate those lessons into their lives outside of those unique cultural contexts. And to be able to provide a space for people to feel held by their native tradition is a very holy thing. And sometimes I wonder how much there is an opportunity for us now as facilitators of these circles to be showing other people that it's a beautiful thing to learn from other traditions. It's a beautiful thing to be held in the wisdom and the leadership and the care of people who have been shepherding and have been attending to these sacred plant medicines for thousands of years. And also, can we, in our own moment, create or even recreate some kind of Jewish indigenous sacred expanded awareness practice and movement that wants to both hold close the traditions that make us who we are, while also providing space for a kind of porousness between cultures so that there can be this ecumenical exchange and this learning. And the people that I'm interacting with, the stories I'm hearing, the sessions that I'm holding, that's really what's coming in front of me is people getting excited and experiencing a lot of gratitude and joy that this kind of thing is finally starting to emerge. And I'm just holding the space for that. And I think we can all learn so much from people coming honestly as their full selves to these circles and saying, hey, you know what, before anything else, I'm a Jew. And that matters a lot to me. And maybe they haven't been able to say something like that before in many other ways, in many other places, but in this place, they are able to say it. And that's a win, I'd say, for Klal Yisrael.
Thank you, Beni.
Yeah, thank you, Beni. I completely agree. And for me, before my first Shefa integration circle, it crossed my mind that it was possible that Judaism might not actually be that present in the content of people's integration shares, but that it might just be this sacred container that, as so many Jews experience, it can be that much easier and one that much quicker to drop in more vulnerably and transparently and connectively when people connect and are surrounded by other Jews. And so I thought it might just be this being a Jewish space might be the Jewish part of it. And I was beautifully surprised by that. Essentially every single being's share had some roots in Judaism. And even people, that shared that, oh, I identify as Jewish, but I don't actively practice anything and I don't even really know much, yet some part of their experience rooted in Judaism. And one brief example is one beautiful being shared that he doesn't know anything, in his words, about Judaism, yet during his journey, the phrase "ani ohev" came up in his mind, and he had no idea what it meant cognitively, yet he started chanting it over and over and over again, and it was the most present part of his entire experience. And it wasn't until days later that he reconnected with technology that he found out that "ani ohev" translates from Hebrew as "I love." And though he didn't have that in his cognitive awareness, he didn't know if maybe he heard it as a kid at summer camp, it was somewhere in his spirit, and that came up for him, shocking to him. And so medicine's inherently bringing us into the spiritual realm. If someone identifies at all with Judaism in any regards, I think it inherently brings Judaism into it.
Thank you. You're both touching upon, it's just so beautiful to hear reflected back what is happening in these circles. And not only just your shares, but consistently when we do our post-survey follow-up, that people are deeply grateful for the container to exist as it has never existed before formally like this, that both of you are expert in finding some piece of Torah or ritual to be able to frame the experience that somehow, some way, is an amazing mirror to reflect back people's shares. Like it seems to like just work or fit somehow. And even if it's after the fact, but that it somehow it strikes people so deeply what you're able to teach, Judaism as a vehicle for understanding and appreciating expanded awareness and the journey back, that people feel like they have, not like you mentioned, Beni, like the guardrail, but they have like a floating carpet, like there's something that is holding them up and helping them elevate their experience from just something that happened to something that is happening now and could continue to enrich their lives. So I want to just first thank you and to honor you as these unique ritual space holders here. And as we continue to do this, I think not only are we getting amazing feedback, we're providing a service to the community, the Jewish and psychedelic community, but I would also love to hear, in your work as rabbis in lots of different contexts, what do you think we might be able to offer from this work, from learning about integration, Jewish integration? What might we be able to teach the rest of Jewish communal offerings, Jewish educational spaces, about their participants, their offerings, their approaches, based on the work that we are doing and what we are learning from these people who have come to us for this specific purpose?
From my experience, one of the strongest threads across all Jews of any religious observance anywhere in the world, any time and space, tends to be this unexplainable desire to keep Judaism alive. And that even people who aren't practicing anything in their daily life, they're drawn to raise their kids Jewish. And I think for people across all cultures and religions, these spiritual experiences really enhance and enliven deep ancestral connection and enable and empower people to understand what ancestors mean in a whole new way. And that's, of course, a pivotal part of Judaism with our avot and imaot, and just this deep connection to ancestors. And so I think these insights can help bring to the greater Jewish world that explanation that can't quite be explained, but a deeper understanding of, oh, we're striving to continue this profound religion or ethnicity or whatever you think of it as, because of continuing our ancestral lineages. And then also the other piece, I think, is the varying relationship with prayer, and that a lot of modern progressive Jews struggle to connect with davening or with tefillah, with liturgy, with praying. And these experiences cultivate an access point into the spiritual realm that is so difficult to stumble upon, especially in modern day in this material physical world. And so I think this work can bring to the greater Jewish world the deeper understanding and connection to prayer.
Beautiful, Paige. It's a great question, Zach. It's a really important question, because I don't believe that this particular pathway is for everyone. And yet the Judaism is a communitarian pathway, in that we're all here for one another at the end of the day. We're all part of this project of collective memory, collective yearning, collective effervescence that has stood the test of time. And one of the things that I've noticed, and this also came up before I really got into any of this, when I was working in different Jewish professional spaces across denominational lines, is that there was a strong pull from a lot of folks across the sort of different ages, different generations, different affiliations and orientations, towards a clarification of what is the fire that we're trying to perpetuate through time, like Paige was talking about. Because as time has gone on, we've had to layer on top of this burning mystical fire that I've heard you speak about it as, with many, many layers of praxis and historical experience and trauma as well has gone into that. And so much so that oftentimes what people are experiencing is their teachers telling them and sharing with them the layers as if they were the fire is kind of the way that I've encountered it and have been thinking about it to myself. And that rings hollow. And so then they feel that it's time to throw out the babies in the bathwater, like there's nothing here. If what we're teaching deep down are just layers that peel into nothing. But there is something deep down, I believe. And I believe that there are many pathways towards encountering moments where we can touch into what that is and why it's relevant on a cosmic level, on a human level, on a personal spiritual level. And this happens to be one of those pathways. And it requires a very nuanced and sensitive approach in order to maximize the benefits and minimize the potential harm, as opposed to something like a meditation or deep davening practice or fasting, where there are inherent risks, but they're of a different magnitude, in my opinion, than what we're talking about here. But just because that the risk profile is different doesn't mean that we can't put our heads together and our hearts together and build new things to hold what is possible using these technologies and using these practices. Because I've seen us do it before. We built 2 Betei Mikdash, like we've built Mishkan in wilderness. We've built incredible communities across the globe throughout thousands of years that have given everyone so much. And I think this is just going to be, God willing, another one of those experiences where we are able to offer something up, not just for the rest of our community, but for the broader world, about how to sacralize learning and how to sacralize connection in a way that provides a foundation for a more holistic and integrated way of being in the world.
Thanks to you both. What I'm hearing is this strong thread, and again, maybe we can take more time to recover or uncover it. But the focus on direct experience as something that is uniquely available in expanded awareness or psychedelic experience that might not be in waking consciousness. The encountering of what I would call culture, Beni, as you said, or there being barriers to entry, Paige, in terms of the space between me and the written word, which has layers of meaning in itself and interpretation, and I just can't get to the prayer space because I have to interface with this Sidur. How do we think about prayer as something that is spontaneously generated from the human individual because of gratitude or lack or need or wanting to be at home in chaos, before even approaching liturgy, or the other way around, going through the written word into this expanded state. And also then, just like what you mentioned about being part of the generations, and it made me think about a teacher of mine, Rabbi Shmuel Lewis, saying that in some ways American Judaism learned more from Ralph Waldo Emerson than it did from the lineage of the Avot, from Moshe to Yehoshua to the subsequent generations of the holders of Torah. When Emerson talks about there being no lineage, right? Being an American means being a revelation in this very moment without any dependency on the past. And what could emerge in American Judaism or global Judaism from many different strains, many different denominations, if there was a better sense of where we are from, both in our own personal narratives and family lineages, but also in the more cosmic or archetypal realm, which we might not be able to access until we enter those expanded states. So I want to thank you both for all of your care, all of your effort and energy in everything that you're doing, also what you're investing into our growing community of integration circles, and what you'll be able to continue to offer Shefa and any community that you find yourselves in. Again, Beni and Paige are our integration circle facilitators. You can sign up for a integration circle at our website, shefaflow.org. There'll be a link down below this video. Sign up for as many as you like. You'll get an email with instructions before the circle. You'll join Paige or Beni on Zoom, and then there'll be some follow-up afterwards. Again, Beni, Paige, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all your work. And we will talk again very soon about many more things.
Thank you dearly.
Thank you so much, Zac. This is great. Thank you, Paige, as well.